Welcome on into the All Aussie Rules Football Podcast. It's episode number 59 of season 2026, and today it's our round 23 review of the AFL men's season. There was 9 games this weekend. We're going to be going through every single one of them, everything you need to know from a massive weekend of football. Do we have our top 10 nailed in? Stick around, find out. We'll discuss all of that and plenty more. So we'll go through all 9 games. Then we will have a look at the ladder, what that means for next week. And we will round out the episode with our Brownlow leaderboard, MVP leaderboard after round 23, and how our footy tips went on the weekend. So all of that to come in today's episode. Plenty to get through. A little bit different this week than most. It's not going to all be in one recording because, I'm recording this before the Sunday games. So I'm doing that bit, and then I'll do the Sunday games after. We'll work our way through that. Just because it's a hectic weekend, and if I don't get this bit done, I'll never get this episode out, because it is a lot of football that is happening today and every day this weekend. So let's jump into it anyway. Round 23 of the men's season, the second last weekend of the home and away season. And we kicked off on Friday night with a pretty good game of football, if we're being completely honest. Fremantle get back into their winning ways and lock in the minor premiership, winning this one 16-16, 1-1-2 against 13-10, 8-8. So the 24-point win to the Dockers. They were just a little bit too good in their retro kits, wearing the green on Friday night. Adelaide started well, kicked the first couple. Dockers did have the lead by quarter time, 34-21. It was only 5-point margin at half time. The lead changed a couple times in that third quarter, but Fremantle still did lead by 7 points at three-quarter time. Scores were level about 5 minutes into the final quarter before the Dockers kicked a few in a row. Just to give them that break, they end up winning in the end by 24 points. Pretty impressive win. They did everything they needed to. Adelaide, on the other hand, they weren't bad. They certainly weren't bad. They just were probably beaten by a better team on the day. In the end, is pretty much my adjudication of how the game went and what happened. Looking at some of the team stats, Fremantle did have more of the ball. They certainly had a lot more inside 50s, plus 14. They won clearances, centre clearances, they won by plus 5, overall clearances plus 6. Contested football was pretty much level, but uncontested football Fremantle dominated, so they did look after the football the way they kind of wanted to in this game. In the end, they had 9 more shots than the Crows, so they probably could have won by a little bit more. Intercepts were basically level, plus 1 to Fremantle. Scoring from turnovers or intercepts, though, was plus 19 in favour of Fremantle. So 1 extra intercept, but 19 extra points. And it could have been more, in all honesty, because from that source, Fremantle kicked 9 goals in 11. So a little bit inaccurate there. Stoppage scoring also went the way of Fremantle. They did win clearances in the game. Centre bounce scoring was huge, 26-13 in favour of the Dockers. And the other big thing was forward half scoring. Fremantle did what they do best there, 59-37 plus 22, which does mean Adelaide actually won the scoring from the back line, 38-27. Both teams' transition numbers were below their average and even below the AFL average. Not once in this game did Fremantle go from defensive 50 to a score, which is crazy. You don't see that too often. Meanwhile, Adelaide only went and did it once out of about 40 attempts or whatever it was. So, not much in terms of transition in this game. It was an interesting sort of game of football, a little bit different than we kind of expect, but 2 really good teams, I think. Fremantle definitely a good team. Adelaide, a pretty good team. Going at it, and in the end, Fremantle take the 4 points, which is what they wanted and they needed, and they got it. Adelaide would have really liked this win, just based on what that would have meant for their ladder position and their season. As it is, depending on how other results have gone across the weekend, which we'll discuss as we go through, it does make top four basically impossible now, I think. They would need a miracle for that, just based on what other games are happening next weekend. Top six is possible, but they need some results to go their way. Mainly speaking, that Melbourne game, they probably need Melbourne to lose. So they may well be into a wildcard final against Bulldogs, Carlton sort of area. So that's certainly not going to be easy, but we'll see how that plays out. That's where the Dockers are, though. The Crows are, sorry. In terms of player stats, Brownlow votes, as we do every single week. We do a 3-2-1 based on what we think the umpires will see. In all honesty, I've gone Sarong 3, Rankin 2, Jai Miss 1. The more I've thought about it, maybe Rankin 3. So I think it's Rankin and Sarong 3 and 2. Rankin was absolutely huge again. He's been in some stellar form over the last month of football. Jai Miss 1. It could go also to Brayshaw. Luke Jackson will be in there. Bolton will be in there. That's probably the long and the short of it. Jordan Dawson could. Had 10 clearances, but that's how I've got it. Highest rated players. This is based on our All Aussie Rules rating system. Across about 30 different stats, efficiency, score involvement, score efficiency, all that sort of stuff does come into these ratings, and these are the top 5 players for both teams. For the Dockers in the green this week, Andrew Brayshaw was number 1, 27 touches and a goal. Caleb Sarong had 29 touches and 2 goals, as well as 12 clearances. Luke Jackson was really good in the ruck. He was only just ahead of Lachlan McAndrew in the ratings. Both ruckmen did rate quite well here. Bolton, 4th best with 27 and a goal, and Jordan Clark had 25 touches, but was good. On the other side of the fence, Adelaide had the number 1 rated player on the ground, Isaac Rankin. He was insane again, 2 weeks in a row. If he had converted his shots a little bit better, he would have had one of the games of the season. He had 39 touches for 1 goal, 3, 10 clearances, and over 700 metres gained. He is an absolute gun. Lachlan McAndrew was good in the ruck, as we said. Jordan Dawson, 27 touches, copped one to the ribs and kept going, 10 clearances. Rory Laird, 4th with 22 and a goal. And Dan Curtin was their 5th highest rated player. Not a huge amount of touches, but was efficient when he had the ball. Did some okay things. So that was Dockers winning, sealing the minor premiership. We're going to have to wait until next week's games to know who they're going to be playing in week 2 of the finals now, in that qualifying final. But they'll be really happy that they've been able to lock in their second ever minor premiership, and all things looking very, very good out west. They should have they will have 2 home finals, with one of them being hopefully a prelim final, if they can get that win in the first week. And it's certainly going to be tough to beat in a prelim final over there. That is for sure. Next up, we obviously already onto Saturday football, no Friday night football. Oh, no Thursday night footy. We had a Friday game. And now we're into Saturday. And it kicked off with Richmond v St Kilda. St Kilda kind of hoping that they can keep their finals alive. And at time of recording, it is still alive, because they won this game, and Carlton Bulldogs play later on, which will determine whether St Kilda still have a hope for finals next week. Richmond farewelled a few stars, or 2, in Prestia and Broad. Obviously, Lynch was celebrating a milestone as well. In the end, Saints win by 49 points, though. They controlled this game throughout. It was close-ish in the first quarter, just 10 points in it, but by halftime, it felt like it was over, 48-23. Third quarter was out to 75-27, so pretty comfortable lead. Final quarter did end up being a bit of a nothing quarter, 3 goals apiece. Ends up being about the same final margin as 3-quarter time. 49-point margin. Pretty comfortable win for the Saints. They'll be pretty happy with how that game went, I think. They'll just be disappointed with how this season has kind of eventuated. Could have been a lot better for them. Team stats, St Kilda had over 100 disposals more than Richmond. They went at a disposal efficiency of about 5% better. So they went at 77%, which is pretty solid at the MCG, compared to 71.9 of Richmond. So they just looked after the football a lot better. That allowed them to get 13 extra inside 50s. They also laid 28 more tackles. They had 44 more contested possessions, which is unreal. That's a massive discrepancy. In terms of intercepts, Richmond actually had 4 more intercepts than St Kilda, but just the sheer volume of football that St Kilda had meant that didn't actually equate to much. Clearance numbers was plus 14 for St Kilda, dead level on centre clearances, 9 apiece, which they both converted into 1 goal each from centre bounce. Stoppage scoring was 45 to 16 in favour of St Kilda, and turnover scoring was 49 to 29. Defensive half scoring was very, very good from St Kilda, and that is your difference, really. They went 57 to 19 from that back half. They went well above average in defensive 50 to forward 50, defensive 50 to score percentage, defensive half to forward 50, and defensive half to score. So St Kilda did really well with that transition game, compared to both their average and the AFL average. So they'll be very, very happy with how they performed in that regard, their ball movement. Once again, though, probably too little too late, but you can only do what you can do on the day. Richmond were well below they're always down below their AFL average. Just not great numbers across the board, if we're being honest, in all of those transition numbers for Richmond. They're not up to this level at the moment. It's pretty simple. They just have too many players that aren't at that level. In the end, 26 shots to 15. Richmond had just 15 shots in a game of football. You're not going to win too many games when you have 15 shots, and you're also not going to win many games if you only kick 6 goals in the match, in pretty perfect conditions on a Saturday afternoon. So that's all the team stats. Brownlow votes. Max Hall gets the 3 from us again. He was outstanding. His last little bit of form has been great. 2 to Mitch Owens up forward. His first half, 2.5 quarters were really good. And Jack McRae getting the 1 vote from us. In terms of highest rated players, for the Tigers first, Tim Taranto was number 1, 21 touches, 1 goal. You still want to see him getting a bit more of it and doing a bit more with the football for someone of his talent, but it is what it is. Ben Miller was good down back. Dion Prestia in his last game as a Tiger, 27 touches, 3 clearances. Jack Ross in the middle was next. His start to the season was pretty good. It's kind of, since coming back from injury, perhaps hasn't been as good. 16 touches and a goal. And Hugo Ralph-Smith on the wing, 15 touches in this one. But it was all St Kilda. Max Hall ends up highest rated player on the ground, and I think highest rated player so far this round up to the end of Saturday football. 40 touches, 1 goal, 3 clearances, 4 goal assists. When he's on, he's very, very good. So that is an exciting prospect, I think, for St Kilda there. Jack McRae, 32 touches, 12 clearances. Jack Silvani down back, played a really good game, 20 touches. Mitch Owens, as we said, he kicks 5 out of their 14 goals on the day. I think he had 5 out of 11 at one point. Really good performance from him. And Dan Butler, he also played up forward, 21 touches and 2 goals, is their top 5 rated players for the weekend. So St Kilda basically just relying on hoping that Carlton go, pardon me, and lose both their final 2 games to hopefully make finals. If Carlton win either, then their season's done. Or, of course, if there's another draw. Richmond, their season's been done for a while. Moving on to the next game, it was Marvel Stadium. We had a doubleheader with the AFLW. Make sure you come back on. I think Friday will be our AFLW episode this week. North Melbourne v Geelong. What a weird game this was in a lot of ways. Geelong end up winning at 19-11, 125 to 17-8, 110. 15-point winners This one started absolutely hot for the Kangaroos. They kicked 7 of the 8 first quarter goals. They led 44-6 at quarter time. They kicked the first point of the second quarter to give them a game high lead of 39 points. And then from that point on, well, for at least the rest of the second quarter, Geelong dominated and actually had the lead by 7 points at halftime against all odds. They just absolutely turned it on, kicking 9 goals 4 in the second quarter to 2 goals 1. Third quarter was a bit of both teams having a run, but North Melbourne finished with a little bit of a spurt, kicking the last 3 to give them a 1-point lead going into the final change. Geelong came out of that break, kicked a goal instantly 30 seconds into the final quarter. They kicked the next couple to give them a break, and then it kind of looked like Kangaroos had got it back, and then Geelong got it back. In the end, Geelong kick a goal right on the siren to end up winning by that 15 points. The big injury news from this one was Harry Sheasels probably finished his season, copped an absolute all-timer shiner. If you haven't seen his face, it is a bad one, I reckon, so I doubt we'll see him next week. I think that was just before half time, so we didn't see him in the second half. But in the end, Geelong just did what Geelong do, and it was enough. It wasn't pretty, but it was enough. If we look at the team stats in this game, overall, Geelong did have 9 extra shots at goal, so probably should have won. Didn't exactly take all the opportunities, but still 19 goals from 34 shots is pretty good. But North Melbourne's 17 goals from 25 shots is absolutely outstanding. Contested football was won by North Melbourne. The tackle pressure from both teams was very high. Overall disposal numbers were pretty close. North Melbourne looked after the ball better on the overall than Geelong. However, the intercept numbers were plus 12 for Geelong, so they did get plenty of opportunities from that, and we know how good Geelong are when they get big intercept numbers and big scoring from intercept, and that's what they did here. They scored 14-8-92. So 14 out of their 19 goals came from the intercept, whereas North Melbourne only got 8 goals. Only 8 goals. That's pretty good for North Melbourne, but when you're conceding 14, you're going to struggle to keep up. It's where Geelong look their best. When they're getting massive scores from intercept, they're basically impossible to stop. North Melbourne did score very well from stoppage, 59-27, but it was just a bridge too far to climb, really. A lot of scoring from the front half from both teams, 77-63. As you kind of expect in a high-scoring game, like there's 36 goals kicked, you're going to see a fair chunk from either centre bounce or forward half. It's pretty much how high-scoring games go, really. Brownlow votes were going Bailey Smith 3, Nick Larkey 2, Sean Manor with 1. Top 5 rated players for both teams. First up, the Kangaroos. Zerha ends up on top, down back, 20 touches. He was good. Highest rated player on the ground, in fact. Nick Larkey is next. He kicked 5 goals from 10 disposals, which is a really good return. 5 goals straight as well. His kicking accuracy has not been as good as it usually is so far this season, so he'll be happy with that return. Jai Simpkins started the game hot. Kicks 2 goals, 26 touches for the game. And Zach Banch was good up forward. Overall, throughout most of the game was pretty good. He ends up with just 12 touches and a goal, but also 3 goal assists. For Geelong, Ollie Dempsey leads the way, 24 touches and a goal. Does what Ollie Dempsey's done for the whole back half of this year. Been very good on the wing. Blixarves plays a fair bit of ruck time this week, has 18 touches and a goal. Bailey Smith ends up leading possessions with 34 touches. Only the 2 clearances, but still a very good game. Lawson Humphreys played one of his better games of the year, 20 touches and a goal. And Connor O'Sullivan is next, down back, was really good. Obviously, I did give Manor votes, even though he's not in the top 5. 20 touches, 3 goals, and a goal assist. So the Cats, they still have to win next week, which they should do to lock in the top 6. If they win next week, they will lock in that top 6. They play Richmond. Should be a winnable game, should be a win. It's unlikely they make top 4 based on other results this weekend. They would need 2 of Hawthorn, Brisbane and Melbourne to lose next week, and they would have to win as well, which they probably will win. Will we see 2 of Brisbane, Hawthorn, Melbourne lose? I don't think so, especially not Hawthorn, so they're kind of relying on the other 2, I reckon. But funny things can happen in the final round, so who knows? Maybe top 4 is still a chance, but it might be a tough one for them to get. We will have to see how that plays out. Yeah, is basically the long and the short of it. And Kangaroos, their season was already done, so a loss isn't the end of the world. They're back 5 or 6 weeks. It's not been fantastic, but at the end of the day, it's still a 9-win season so far with 1 game to play. Unlikely to win that last one, I don't reckon, but from where they've been the last 5 years, it's definitely better than those seasons. So there is improvement. They need to take that next step next year and make finals, though. Next up, we head up to the Q Clash and have a look at that one and see where that leaves us, I guess. We got Brisbane v Gold Coast. It was at the Gabba. Good game in some ways, but also Gold Coast kicking kind of let them down. 6 goals, 17-53. They lose by 42 points, 14-11-95. Both teams wearing alternate kits than usual. Brisbane were wearing their old Brisbane Bears kit. Gold Coast in the pink, but Brisbane win it in the end reasonably comfortably on the scoreboard. Scores were level quarter time. Half time it was 5-7 to 3-7 plus 12 points for the Lions. Third quarter things continued that sort of way out to 29-point lead for the Lions, and then the final quarter was a 1-goal 6 quarter for the Gold Coast Suns, as they end up losing this one in the end by 42 points. Just a good game from Lions. They did what they needed to almost lock in the top 4. It's not there yet. Obviously, depending on what they do next week. But if they win against Collingwood, then they're going to probably finish 3rd or 4th. They'll probably want to finish 3rd. So they need to win by enough or more than Hawthorn, really, to lock in that 3rd, because I think they'd rather play Sydney in Sydney than Fremantle in Freo. That's my thoughts on the situation. But that'll be interesting. Gold Coast, obviously, their season is done. Already was. Even more so now. They're 14th on the ladder. And they are, 3 or 4 games outside of the 8 as it stands. Let's have a look at the team stats in this one. Sorry, there's a lot going on. Where are we? Brisbane, Gold Coast. Overall disposal numbers did slightly go the way of Brisbane. The efficiency numbers pretty similar. Metres gained was a massive difference, though. 700 metres gained difference. Tackle numbers plus 12 for Brisbane. Inside 50s actually were more for Gold Coast. Even though they kicked poorly, 6 goals, 17, they did have 10 shots less than Brisbane. So Gold Coast had 27 shots, only managed 6 goals, which is pretty ordinary. Brisbane also weren't overly accurate. They went 14 goals from 37 shots. So both teams certainly could have kicked better in this game. Clearance numbers did go the way of Gold Coast plus 5. Centre clearances went Gold Coast way plus 9. So that's crazy difference, plus 9 from centre clearances. But they only managed the 1 extra goal than Brisbane from centre bounce. And overall stoppage, plus 5, and Brisbane outscored them from stoppage 33 to 31. Intercept numbers were dead level at 60 apiece, but scoring from turnover was 56, 8 goals 8 for Brisbane to 2 goals 10 for the Gold Coast Suns. They just shot themselves in the foot in many ways. I know Brisbane didn't kick accurately in front of goal either, but you kick 6 goals 17, you're not going to win a game of football very often. Brownlow votes, we've gone Will Ashcroft with 3, Matt Rao with 2, and Levi Ashcroft with 1. So all the midfielders. Top rated players for both teams. For the Brisbane Lions first, Dane Zorko back into his best form, 25 touches and a goal. Levi Ashcroft out on the wing, 26 touches and a goal, one of his best games of his career so far. Will Ashcroft also was very good. He's been in great form over the last 10 weeks now, basically since their bye, the week before their bye. 31 touches, a goal, 4 clearances. Josh Dunkley played a Josh Dunkley game if I've ever seen one, 24 touches, 8 tackles. And Charlie Cameron kicked a couple goals, 17 touches, and 500 metres gained. Not bad for a small forward. That's their top 5. And for the Gold Coast Suns, it was Noah Anderson on top, 24 touches and a goal assist. Ned Moyle in the ruck had 41 hitouts. Bodie Ulan did what Bodie Ulan's done all year, was very good down back. Joel Jeffrey played a little bit more up the ground this week. He was solid, and Mac Andrew is their 5th highest rated player in this game. So Brisbane did what they needed to, set themselves up for a really good chance for top 4. That fate is in their hands next week against Collingwood at the MCG. Meanwhile, Gold Coast Suns, they're counting down the days till the end of the season. They've only got one more game to get through. So we jump into Saturday night. We had 2 games of football on Saturday. We kicked off, first of all, with Hawthorn v Collingwood at the MCG. And we had our second draw of the season, which, crazy enough, was also the same 2 teams that had our first draw of the year. And that wasn't the only similarity in this one. Crazy enough, Dylan Moore had a shot on the siren again, just like he did last time. Round 8, he kicked the goal to draw. This time, he misses everything, and it stays a draw. Crazy, crazy coincidences. What a game of football. It was a game that ebbed and flowed. It was a momentum game. Whoever had the momentum certainly looked the best throughout most of this game. And in the end, it ends up 13-14, 92, 13-14, 92. First quarter, dead level at quarter time, 15 apiece. Second quarter, Hawthorn kicked the first, but then Collingwood kicked 5 in a row to have a 22-point lead going into half time. And it was Collingwood's game in that first half. They had the pressure up. They were winning clearances, which is something they don't do too often. They were really good in the contest. Half time, things completely turned around. Hawthorn came out completely different. They got rid of Collingwood dominating the clearances. They started to dominate clearances. They absorbed the pressure a lot better in that second half. They kicked the first 5 goals of the third quarter to give themselves a lead. Collingwood got a goal late in the third, which put them just a few points behind. Hawthorn were 3 points up at 3-quarter time. And then they kicked a goal 20 seconds into the fourth quarter. And then they kicked 2 more within the next 6 minutes or 5 minutes when Mitch Lewis kicked a goal to put them up by 21 points early in that final quarter. You thought Hawthorn had done enough, but this Collingwood team just does not go away. They kicked 4 goals in about the next 5 minutes of football to give themselves the lead, crazy enough. Then Hawthorn managed 2 more, and then Collingwood got a goal late through Ryan Steele to tie it up. Gunston kicked a point, and then Ryan Steele kicked another behind late in this one to tie it up. And then, as we said, Dylan Moore had that shot from the boundary 50 metres out to try and a score would have won them the game. In the end, it didn't quite make the distance, and Sam Swadling got the spoil to save the day for Collingwood, which in the end, it's pretty much a nothing result for both teams in a lot of ways. I think, if Collingwood had have won, it would have given them the opportunity that they could still get above Geelong or Adelaide next week, whereas now that draw means that they can't. Based on other results as well, it means they're probably not going to go below 9th. I don't think they can. So they're probably basically going to finish 8 or 9 on the ladder, and a likely game against either the Bulldogs or Carlton, depending on how their games last 2 matches go. So that's fine for them. On the other side of the fence, Hawthorn, a draw, it's not the end of the world. Once again, a win would have had them in 3rd, guaranteed that if they win next week, they were finishing 3rd. Now they're in 4th, just behind Brisbane on percentage. They win by enough next week, they can still get 3rd, which is probably their preferred result. Or if Brisbane lose on Friday night, which Hawthorn don't play till later on in the weekend, so they'll know what they have to do by the time that it gets to their game. So, yeah, that's going to be an interesting end to the weekend next weekend as well, I think. Hawthorn v Collingwood team stats. In the end, Collingwood had about 20 extra disposals, which is against their normal type of game. They also had 13 extra inside 50s. They also had 54% of the ball in their forward half. That's all very un-Collingwood-like football. That's the strangest part of this game, I think, is that Collingwood won those areas. We did hint on the preview episode last week on the podcast that Collingwood can change their game style depending on the opposition, probably more than any other team. Like overall, they've done this a couple times this year where they're really bad in clearances, but then they come out and they play really well in clearances. They get beaten in contested football regularly, but sometimes they come out and do it. And I think it's like opposition related. It's what they focus on in the week. They're a well-drilled team, there's no doubt about it. And I think that's just what they do. They won contested football by 3 here. Intercepts, they had 9 less than Hawthorn. That's normally Collingwood's game, is that intercept game. Whereas this time, they were getting first hands on it. They were getting clearances. They only lost centre clearances by 1. They won overall clearances by 12. But then the intercept game was the reverse of that in the end. And scoring says the same thing. Scoring from stoppage, Collingwood plus 13. Scoring from turnover, Hawthorn plus 12. So, yeah, just a difference in game style compared to what we usually see, especially from Collingwood. Total shots at goal, Collingwood had 32, Hawthorn 31. Expected score, Collingwood was the expected score winner, but at the end of the day, that means nothing because they didn't win the game. Ball use, transition numbers, Collingwood really good from defensive half. The ball was in their forward half a lot of this game, and they did score pretty well from the forward half. +6 from forward half and +1 from defensive half. But in the end, it's a draw. Crazy, crazy draw. Who would have thought we'd get 2 draws between the same 2 teams? Absolutely unreal. Brownlow votes could go anyway. I've gone Nick Dacos because, I mean, we know the umpires do notice him a lot. 36 touches and a goal. It wasn't his best game. As you can see, he wasn't in Collingwood's top 5 rated players in our rating system, but 36 and a goal is hard to ignore. Josh Ward was Hawthorn's best player, in my opinion. 20 touches, 2 goals was really, really important for them. And Beau McQuarrie's last quarter was absolutely massive for Collingwood. He was a big difference in turning them around when they were 21 points down. He ends up with 22 touches and a goal, 12 tackles, 3 clearances. A fair chunk of that was in that final quarter. Other people that could get votes, Sam Swadling was good. Josh Dacos got plenty of it. Impey. Collingwood had a lot of the football, in all honesty. Top 5 rated players for both teams. Josh Ward was number 1 for the Hawks. Then Mitch Lewis was second. He kicked 2 goals, including what we thought was maybe the sealer when they went 21 points up, but it wasn't. Jai Newcomb lifted in the second half, 24 touches a goal. Jarman Impey had 25 touches, and Dylan Moore could have been the hero. 19 touches, 1 goal, 2, and of course 1 miss after the siren, or on the siren. Beau McQuarrie ends up Collingwood's highest rated player, but perhaps his best ever game of football at AFL level. Really good from him. Josh Dacos second with 30 touches and 3 goal assists from Josh Dacos as well. Very important there. Roan Steele could have been a hero as well. 2 goals, 2 from 17 touches. Ed Allen was huge. 28 touches and a goal. And Darcy Cameron was good in the ruck. Number 1 ruck on the ground in terms of ratings. Good performance from him. We've kind of already discussed what that means for both teams. So we'll jump into the next game of football. And it was over in South Australia at the same time. Port Adelaide v Melbourne ends up being a pretty comfortable win to the Demons. 20 goals, 12, 132 to 8 goals, 8, 56. They were up 36 points at quarter time, 37 points at half time. out to 53 at three-quarter time, end up winning it by 76 points. Pretty comfortable. I mean, we know that Port Adelaide are missing a lot of players at the moment. We know that it's difficult for them. They're missing a lot of players. It's been a long season. They're just kind of counting down the days to the end of the year. But on the other side of the fence, Melbourne, they just keep getting it done. And this is just another case of that. They're sitting fifth on the ladder. Top four still possibility. They just need either Hawthorn or Brisbane to lose next week, and they need to beat the Bulldogs. And top four is there. So it's been a fantastic season from them. They're 15 wins, 7 losses. It's all to play for next week for them. Big game for them against the Bulldogs, who kind of have their own fate in their hands next week. But we'll get to that when we get to the Bulldogs. Port Adelaide, they're going to finish 15th on the ladder. It's absolutely certain now. 2 wins behind Gold Coast, 2 wins ahead of West Coast heading into the final game. They play Essendon in one of the biggest nothing games of all time. However, it might be something for Essendon because if they win that, they could get off the bottom of the ladder. So we'll see how that shapes up next week. In terms of this one, team stats in the Port Adelaide versus Melbourne game, no real surprise that Melbourne kind of dominated it. In most facets, they had 70 extra disposals. They had over 800 metres gained more than Port Adelaide. Ball was in the forward half of Melbourne for almost 59% of the game. They had 20 extra tackles. They dominated the intercept game, absolutely massive. One of the biggest discrepancies in the intercept game that you'll ever see, 84 to 56, which they also turned into a massive amount of scoring. Almost all their scoring for the Demons came from turnover. And it's not that surprising when they had 84 intercepts. But 111 points, 17 goals, 9 from turnover. That's absolutely unreal. That's your difference right there. So 111 to 28. Centre clearances, Port Adelaide actually won 20 to 10, which is crazy. And they managed to get 3 goals to 1 from centre clearance. The problem was they just couldn't look after the ball well enough. If they didn't score, and then most of the time Melbourne would take it the other end and score quite well. Is your difference. Overall clearances was also plus 14 for Port Adelaide, which they scored 28 points from, compared to 21 for Melbourne. What else is there to say from this game? In terms of team stats, not much. 36 shots at goal to 18. It was a domination, as we kind of expected. One team's absolutely flying, the other one's missing a lot of players and just counting down their days to the end of the season, really. Brownlow votes, we've gone Cade Chandler with 3, Jack Steele with 2, and Bailey Fritsch with 1. In terms of highest rated players for both teams, first of all, Port Adelaide, Jordan Sweet in the ruck actually did beat Max Gawn in our rating system. He was good, I think. Old Jordan Sweet ends up with 18 touches, 2 goals, 25 hit-outs. And obviously they did do well out of centre clearance, especially in this game. Ollie Wines had 31 touches, 8 clearances, was good. Miles Bergman next with 27 touches, 3 clearances. Joe Richards, 29 touches, 9 clearances. They may have found another midfielder in Joe Richards. And Josh Lai was their 5th highest rated player. Didn't have a heap of the football, but did what he's done all season, and that's good with the ball and effective throughout this game. Melbourne's top 5 rated players. First of all, Carlton Falsthorpe is number 1, thanks to a massive intercept game. 13 intercepts he had in this one. A really good performance that. Cade Chandler next with 4 goals from 18 touches. Max Gawn in the ruck. We did say he got beaten by Jordan Sweet, but he still had 25 touches, 22 hit-outs, 9 clearances, so he played well. Daniel Turner had 11 intercepts of his own. Obviously, Melbourne did dominate that intercept game, 19 touches for the game. And Jake Lever down back also was quite well rated as well, 20 disposals. Melbourne win by 76 points. They'll be laughing going into next week. They need to come out and get another big win against the Bulldogs. That's going to be a massive game of football next weekend with a lot riding on it. Tune into that one. It's going to be a potentially good game on Saturday afternoon, 4:15 kickoff at the MCG. Bulldogs will know where they're kind of at already because Carlton played before them, as do Collingwood. So That's going to be an interesting Saturday of football. Not much else to go through from that game, so we jump into Sunday football. And the first game of Sunday was GWS v the Eagles, and it ends up being a bit of a smashing as West Coast kicked poorly again in front of goal, one of their biggest issues, something they absolutely have to work on. 16-15, 1-1-1 for the Giants, 7 goals, 15-57 for the West Coast Eagles. The Giants win it by 54 points. The Eagles came out really well, kicking 4 of the first 5 goals of the match. But still were losing by a point at quarter time as the Giants kicked into gear just before or late in that first quarter. Second quarter was a bit of a blowout. It was 6 goals to 0. Third quarter, 2 goals to 0 again. So it had been 2 full quarters without a goal from West Coast. They finally got one 5 minutes into the final quarter, but it was way too little too late as the Eagles end up running away by... the Giants run away by 54 points in the end. Obviously, neither of these teams are going to be playing finals, depending on whether Carlton win or not later on Sunday. At the time of the game finishing, that was still to be played for if they could have got some luck. But with hindsight, we can say that their season is done. Disappointing end, really, on a season that could have promised a lot more if they had have got over the likes of West Coast last time they met, Essendon last time they met, Gold Coast last week. They've just lost too many games that they should have won. They could have definitely been playing finals this year. I know they have a lot of injuries and they do have plenty of excuses, but at the end of the day, you can only play with what you got, and the Giants didn't succeed with that this year. Team stats in this game, the Giants had a lot more of the football. Ends up with equal inside 50s for both teams at 53 apiece. Clearances go the way of Eagles, especially centre clearances, 13-8. Contested football is pretty level. Uncontested football goes the way of the Giants. Overall, I think the Giants just controlled the pace of the game through the important stages. The Eagles obviously came out of the game really well, really hot, but as the game progressed, the Giants just got more and more control through their running defenders, and that just kind of took the game away from the Eagles in most ways. Brownlow votes have gone Clayton Oliver. He'll be noticed by the umpires, I think, in this one. 2 votes to Tim Kelly. He's been really good over recent weeks, and Lockie Ash with 1 vote. Top 5 rated players for both teams. Connor Iden leads the way, 24 disposals. Really good defender. He's had a great season again this year. He's one of our favourites. Lockie Ash, 36 disposals, 860 metres gained. Toby Green, 2 goals, 3 from 16 touches. Could have been an even better game. Missed some gettable goals. Clayton Oliver, as we said, will be noticed by umpires. 29 touches, 6 clearances, almost 300 metres gained. Not his best game, but he was solid. And Stephen Caniglio, he's been serviceable all year. 22 touches, 2 goal assists here. And West Coast, Tim Kelly leads the way. 28 touches, 8 clearances. Jack Graham, 26 touches, 5 clearances. Tom McCarthy continues his fine season, 22 touches, 550 metres gained. Tom Cole is 4th up as their 4th highest rated player, 15 touches and a goal with 2 goal assists. And Elliot Yeo, 18 touches, 5 clearances. West Coast going to finish the season sitting in 16th, almost certainly. It'd be an absolute crazy story if they ended up below Richmond. Pretty much impossible, but it is technically possible, but it won't happen. So they finish 16th, where GWS, they're going to finish somewhere between 11 and probably 11 and 12, in all honesty. I can't see them dropping a spot next week. So, yeah, depending on what happens next week against Adelaide, but probably 12th position finish for the Giants for season 2026. Well, 2 games left to look at, and what a crazy one this is. What a crazy weekend it has been. This was the second draw of the weekend. That is unreal. Who would have thought that that was what this weekend would involve? Crazy, crazy times. This one, the Bulldogs Blues end up tied up at 12-10-82. And that means we've got our 10 teams. Carlton officially lock in our top 10 finish with this result. What a season they've had. What a weird season they've had. There's no better way for it to have been wrapped up with a draw, I don't think. They ended up playing for a draw. It was smart football in the last couple of minutes by the Blues. They knew they just needed 2 points from this game to lock in a top 10 finish. And that's what they get. So they'll be playing September football, or at least finals football, with at least a wild card game. Same can be said for the Bulldogs. They will also be in the wild card. Unlikely that they'll meet each other. One of them will probably be playing Adelaide, and the other one potentially probably playing Collingwood. There's a few things that could happen across next weekend to change that, but that's how it looks at the moment. What a weird game. Bulldogs kicked the first couple, then Carlton put in 5 in a row to lead 33-20 at quarter time. Bulldogs got on a run of 4 goals in the second quarter to lead by 5 points at halftime. Third quarter was a little ebby and flowing sort of game, but Blues came out 5 points in front and kicked the first goal of the last quarter to go 2 goals clear. The Bulldogs then kicked a couple quick ones. Then Ed Richards kicked his second goal to give the Bulldogs, the lead with about 5 or 6 minutes to go, and then Francis Evans got the game tying goal. In the last couple of minutes, the Bulldogs tried to lock it down, and the Bulldogs tried to run it out, but couldn't do it. We end up with a draw. Crazy, crazy times. 2 draws in a weekend. Who saw that coming? This season has been wild, so I guess maybe we should have believed it. But yeah, there'd only been 1 draw all season up till this weekend, and now we get 2 in the space of 3 games or 4 games of football. That's pretty absurd. Team stats in this game: Carlton had 112 more disposals than the Bulldogs, but had 10 less inside 50s. Make that make sense. That's crazy. Maybe overpossessed the ball a little bit, Carlton. It has been something that they've done at times. Bulldogs went fast and loose at times because their disposal efficiency was terrible, especially for a game at Marvel. They went at under 70%. That is absurdly low. So something that the Bulldogs needed to work on there. Obviously missing Bont also was an issue for them. Meanwhile, Carlton went at over 77%. Clearance numbers, +3 for Carlton. Centre clearance is dead level, though. Contested football, +9 for the Blues. +104 uncontested possessions. That's what they did all day. They just looked after the footy. 146 marks to 76. It all just tells you the different styles that the 2 teams played, and the fact that Carlton just could look after the football when they needed to in this game of football. In the end, it was enough for a draw. They didn't get the win, but that's all they needed, I guess. In terms of Brownlow votes, we've gone Ed Richards for 3. He was absolutely huge. His best is as good as almost anyone in the competition. 31 touches, 2 goals, and 2 goal assists. Blake Acres, we've given the 2 votes to, and 1 vote to Paddy Cripps. This was a tough game to give votes to. There was just a lot of players that were in that running. George Hewitt, Ollie Florent, Nick Haynes, Sam Walsh, Liberatore. Paddy Cripps did get our votes. Matt Kennedy's also in there. Chera's in there. There's just a lot of players that could get votes in this game. I think Ed Richards was clear best on. I think you could give 2 and 1 to any of those 6, but I've gone Blake Acres and Paddy Cripps for the 2 and the 1. In terms of the highest rated players on the ground, Ed Richards leads the way. That guy is unreal. When he is flowing, he is very, very good. Matt Kennedy, the ex-blue bagger himself, 27 touches, 6 clearances. Buku Kamas next, key defender, 14 touches. Tom Liberatore was good in the middle, 33 disposals, 12 clearances. And Joel Frazier started really well. His first half was good, 20 touches, 2 goals in the end with a goal assist. For the baggers themselves, it was Ollie Florent, their highest rated player. 28 touches. His last few weeks has been good. Blake Acres, how was he not getting a game earlier this year? 32 touches and a goal, as well as 2 goal assists. Nick Haynes next with 26 touches. George Hewitt fourth with 30 disposals, 5 clearances and a goal assist, as well as 8 tackles. And Paddy Cripps, fifth highest blue bagger, 34 disposals, 0-2, but 12 clearances, 2 goal assists. So big games from a lot of players in this one. The Blues end up drawing with the Bulldogs. Both teams go through to the wild card round. Crazy to think. 1 week to go for both teams in the home and away season, which will affect who they play. As it stands, Bulldogs 9, Carlton 10. But if the Bulldogs lose next week and Carlton win, those two will swap. And of course, if the Bulldogs win and Collingwood lose, the Bulldogs could go up to 8 as well. That's the highest that they can finish. 1 game left to look at for the weekend, and it was Bombers Sydney. This one was never one that looked great on paper, and she was over pretty early, even though it only ends up being a 36-point margin. The Bombers were actually pretty good after quarter time. They end up losing 11-10-76 to 17-10-112. 9 out of Sydney's 17 goals came in the first quarter. It was 55-18 at quarter time, which tells you that it was a 37-point margin. From that point onwards, the Bombers actually won the game. That is crazy. Not the first time that's happened for the Bombers. Maybe the foot was taken off the gas pedal. I don't know. But, yeah, you take out the first quarter, and it wasn't actually a bad performance by the Bombers. Unfortunately, though, first quarter did exist. So, yeah, halftime, it was back to, 24 points, I think, was the margin at halftime, so got themselves back into it by that point. They even kicked the first couple of the third quarter, the Bombers, to get it within a couple goals, and it was like, how has this happened? Sydney switched back on. They kicked the next 5 before the Bombers kicked a couple, and then Sydney kicked the last one after the siren, after a 50-metre penalty right on the buzzer. Yeah, it should. You look at the player stats and stuff in this one, and you wonder how Sydney didn't win it by more. Their big name players or their gun players absolutely dominated. But they just, for some reason, Bombers stuck around after that early onslaught. Sydney had a little bit more of the ball, just the 4 extra inside 50s, well below their average. Meanwhile, Bombers went above average on inside 50s. Clearance numbers +7 for Sydney, +4 on the centre clearances, and +3 stoppage. 7 +7 on contested football, +12 uncontested for Sydney. Sydney did have more turnovers than Essendon. We mention it quite a lot that Sydney are a high turnover game, both for and against. This one going +4 on turnovers is something that they'll probably be a little bit disappointed against, especially a team like the Bombers. But luckily for the Swans, the Bombers are not a team that can really make you pay as much as other teams can from that turnover game. So that is a positive, I guess. You wouldn't want to be doing that sort of thing against a Brisbane, or especially like a Geelong. Geelong would tear you to shreds if you gave them that many turnovers. So, yeah, that's the team stats. Individual stats, Brownlow votes, this is a tough one again, in a different sort of way. As I said, all the Sydney players were big. I think the 3 that we've got there, Gould and Heaney, Warner, they probably were the 3 best players and probably all should get votes. What order you put them in is probably up to you, I guess, in a lot of ways. Errol Goulden we've gone with 3 for 47 disposals, 8 clearances. That's an insane game. Isaac Heaney, 29 touches, 3 goals, 7 clearances and 2 goal assists. And Chad Warner, 23 touches, 3 goals, 3 goal assists. Like, there are some insane numbers. I think those 3 deserve the 3 votes, though. Top 5 rated players for both teams. Will Setterfield leads the way for the Dons, 32 and a goal, 8 clearances, 3 goal assists. Very busy game from him, so well done, Will Setterfield. Carried the load for the Bombers in this one. Zach Reid is next, 20 disposals and a goal assist. Jackson Pryor, 16 and a goal assist. Vigo Vicentini, 19 touches, a goal, a clearance. And Andy McGrath, Captain McGrath, is the 5th highest rated with 19 touches. For the Swans, we've already gone through some of the numbers. Heaney, top rated player of the round and the game. Errol Goulden, absolutely massive with 47 disposals. Brodie Grundy in the ruck, 3rd highest with 25 touches, 22 hitouts, 9 clearances. Chad Warner, we've gone through his numbers. And Jake Lloyd, who did kick that goal after the siren, 21 touches, a couple goals. Really good performance by him as the Swans win by 36 points. They lock in 2nd spot on the ladder. That is where they will finish, and they will be hosting a home qualifying final. They'll get 2 home finals. They play North Melbourne next week in a game that doesn't mean a whole hell of a lot for either team. Will they rest players? Probably not, but we'll see. It's going to be interesting to see who they play. It's likely going to be Brisbane or Hawthorn. Maybe slight chance of Melbourne, but you'd think it's likely going to be Brisbane or Hawthorn. Brisbane if Brisbane win, Hawthorn if Brisbane lose is probably how it's going to go. So yeah, that's going to be interesting to see how that kind of plays out. We'll go through my tips for the weekend, and then we'll do a little what happens next. No, we won't. I forgot that we do our Brownlow leaderboard first, then MVP leaderboard, then our tips, and then what happens next. My bad. My brain's working great. Brownlow leaderboard, I mean, we keep doing it, but what's the point? After round 23, I'll be very surprised if Nick Dacos isn't winning this year's Brownlow. I've got him on 46 votes, maybe slightly above what some people do. The umpires do love him though. And he's racking up that many possessions and goals. Like, I just can't see it not happening. So I've got Nick Dacos first on 46. Then Bailey Smith moves into 2nd with 32. Paddy Cripps, Harry Sheasel both on 30. A couple Brisbane players with Bontempelli. Will Ashcroft, Lockie Neal, Bontempelli tied for 5th with 27. Wangani Malira from St Kilda with 24. A 5-way tie in 9th spot, Sarong, Oliver, Newcomb, Butters, Heaney, all on 23. And then tied for 14 is Rankin, Dawson, and the Horn, Francis, all on 22 votes after round 23. Let me know if you think anyone can catch Dacos, but it seems like the most obvious pick of all time, really. MVP leaderboard after round 23 is a little bit different. If you're new around here, we do votes to the top 5 players for every team every single week. Winning team get 10, 8, 6, 4, and 2 votes. Losing team get half of that, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. And drawn matches, which we had 2 on the weekend, obviously, they get split the gap. So both teams get 7.5 for the top, 6, then 4.5, 3, 1.5 for the 5th best player. And this is how it sits after round 23. Max Gawn almost has sewn it up with Bont not playing on the weekend. He goes up to 123 votes on the season. 7 votes in front of Bontempelli. So unless Bontempelli, the Bulldogs win and Bontempelli's in the top 2 players, which is possible, Max Gawn has 1. Although Max Gawn just needs 3 votes or more to officially lock that one in. So Bontempelli right behind him. Nick Dacos in 3rd on 109.5. That sounds like a radio channel. Luke Jackson 4th with 106. Isaac Heaney moves into 5th with 100. Bailey Smith in 6th on 93. Then Ed Richards 92.5. The Shees Man, Sheasel 91. Luke Davies Uniac on 83. Paddy Cripps in 10th on 82.5. Wilkie and Grundy both on 79. Lockie Neal, Jordan Dawson tied in 13th with 78 votes. Brayshaw has 76 and Merritt has 75 as it stands right now. Our tips on the weekend went as so. We went Fremantle by 20. They won by 24. So 4 points off. Pretty close. Good margin. Well done. St Kilda, Richmond. We said St Kilda by 36. They won by 49. Won that one quite comfortably, but another tick. Geelong won by 15. We had them by 3. That's correct. We said Brisbane by 27. They won by 42 points. Not too far off. We had Hawthorn winning by 30. It was a draw, so technically We get a tick, but it is what it is. We weren't that close. Melbourne, we said by 37. They won by a lot more than that, 76. They looked in absolute control. Giants, we had by 25. They won by 54 in a really good display from them. We had the Blue Baggers by 11. It was a draw. Technically, we get it right again. Wasn't great. And then we rounded out the weekend saying Sydney by 37. That looked like a shocking margin 3/4 of the way through the first quarter, but it ends up only being a point off as Sydney won by 36. So technically, with 2 draws, we get 9 out of 9. I think most people will have got 8 or 9 this week with the draws. So, yeah, that is how it is. That wraps up our tipping for another week, 141 for the season. Not a fantastic year, but it is what it is. Yeah, so what's next? What is next is a good question. So we've got our 10 teams locked into finals. Fremantle, Sydney, Brisbane, Hawthorn, Melbourne, Geelong, Adelaide, Collingwood, Western Bulldogs and Carlton all qualify for at least the wild card or more. 3 of them are locked into the wild card, Collingwood, Western Bulldogs, Carlton. A few teams are locked into their set spots. Fremantle are guaranteed to finish top of the ladder with that win. And Sydney are locked into second. 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7, all pretty much fighting for their lives. Collingwood are going to finish 8, 9 or 10. Probably 8, but if they lose to Brisbane and the Western Bulldogs win, they could finish 9th. Western Bulldogs will finish 8, 9 or 10, and Carlton will finish 9th or 10th, depending on if they can beat Fremantle next week or not. Fremantle potentially resting players as well, so we'll see how that plays out. The battle for 3rd and 4th is an interesting one. Brisbane can lock in 3rd, basically, with a win against Collingwood. Obviously, Hawthorn can pass them on percentage, though, so that will potentially go right down to the last game. I think most teams are probably going to want to finish 3rd over 4th. You'd probably rather go to SCG for Sydney than Optus Stadium for Fremantle, who just look untouchable over there. But maybe not. I'm not the coaching panels for these teams, and I mean, if you lose that first week against, say, Sydney, then you're going to have to go through Fremantle at Optus Stadium anyway, so maybe that's not ideal either. But yeah, so 1st, 2nd locked in, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 is going to be a battle to see how this weekend goes. In terms of most likely results, Brisbane probably starting favourite against Collingwood, you'd have to think. Hawthorn will definitely start favourite against West Coast. Melbourne will be favourites against the Bulldogs. Geelong will be favourite against Richmond. Adelaide will be favourite against GWS. So all of them go into this week favourites. I mean, Geelong should definitely win and Hawthorn should definitely win. The rest of them are all, they might win. They're probably slightly over 50% chance of winning. And then in terms of 8, 9, 10, Collingwood, well, all 3 potentially go in as not favourites, although Carlton against a Fremantle who don't have a lot to play for in round 24, maybe a chance for the Blues to get that win and potentially jump the Bulldogs if the Bulldogs go down to Melbourne. So it's going to be an interesting final week of football. Obviously, the rest of the spots on the ladder are also to play for, but outside of the top 10. St Kilda, GWS are going to fight for 11 and 12. St Kilda might win, finish 11th. GWS likely finish 12th, I think. North Melbourne will probably finish 13. Gold Coast, will probably almost certainly finish 14th unless they beat St Kilda, which could happen. It's not against the realms of possibilities. Port Adelaide will definitely finish 15th. West Coast will definitely finish 16th. Richmond will finish 17 or 18. And Essendon will also finish 17 or 18, depending on if the Bombers beat the Power on Sunday or not. In a game that doesn't mean much for either team. Obviously, Port's still suffering a lot of injuries. I still think Port Adelaide probably will win that, but at the same time, I wouldn't be putting my house on it. So 17-18 to play for this weekend. If the Bombers do win, they will jump the Tigers. So that's that. That's all the permutations of this weekend's final round of football. A little disappointing that the 10 is locked in with a week to go, but at the same time, there's still a lot to play for. The matchups, everything else. So it's going to go down to the wire with a lot of things, I think. And that is a wrap on episode number 59 of the Footy Podcast for 2026, All Aussie Rules. We do 2, sometimes 3 episodes every single week. This week there will be 3 episodes. This one is out on Monday for the wrap of round 23. We'll be back on Wednesday with a preview of round 24, the final round of the AFL men's season. That will be episode number 60. And then on Friday, we'll be back with a 3rd episode for the week. Episode 61 will be an AFLW round 2 preview and also a round 1 wrap up. So that will all be in one episode. And then from next week onwards, we'll be back to 2 episodes every single week. One will be on the AFL men's competition, reviewing and previewing all the action that you need to know about. And the other episode will be the AFLW wrap and review preview. So Mondays going forward from next week onwards will be AFLW, and then Thursdays every single week will be AFL men's competition. So that's the plans for the podcast over the next month or so. All Aussie Rules. We go out on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. Make sure you give the podcast a rating. Make sure you follow or subscribe if you enjoy this content. Don't forget to check out all the social medias. All Aussie Rules everywhere. Appreciate you for being here. Hope you enjoyed this episode. Hope you learn a bit. Hope your team won. Let me know how they did go. As I said, we'll be back with episode 60 in just a couple days, so make sure you come back for that one. Appreciate ya, and I'll catch you on the next one.